It's 10:30 a.m. in the United Kingdom. It's 8 p.m. in Australia. The world is listening live by satellite. Hang on. Sorry. That was Live Aid.
Oh, God. Very good. Very good. Yeah. Hello. Oh, so shall I carry on? Are you going to do the show?
I thought we'd finished.
Oh.
All right. What's going on with Tangent? Did he find that funny?
It was the drop ball at the end of it that I'm still trying to get over. Sorry. But it was very good. Very good goal.
All right. Yeah, don't take the piss.
Is Freddie Mercury and anybody else joining us tonight as it's Live Aid?
Nope.
Bob Geldof.
That's put a thing in your thing, hasn't it? Yeah.
Well, we all know I don't like Mondays, so.
Oh, very good. Yeah. I could do Bob Geldof, as you know.
Yes.
But I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to fall for your teasing me into an impression. Have we started? Come on.
Yeah, we have.
Let's do, yeah.
I'm waiting for you to do the intro.
I just did.
Okay. Right. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Champ We Are United podcast, professional as ever, the football comic podcast. Welcome to episode 73.
Whoa, 73?
Episode 73.
All right. That's it. You take my. I'm going to quit.
And there we have it for all of you that are playing podcast bingo. Your first word is now kicked off.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome, listeners from all over the world.
Can I just interrupt? Sorry.
Oh, God. Well, I wanted you to do the intro, and then you don't do it, and then I start doing it, and then you interrupt.
You know what? This is the crappiest intro we've ever done.
Well, it'd be better if you just shut up.
All right. Bye. All right, bye.
My name's Matt. I am your host. I don't know why I've agreed to this. I'm your host for today's episode. Joined in the studio today by, let's introduce a few of the guests. So, well, we've got one guest, but we have, obviously, remember the team. Let's do the teams first. So, introduce you to...
He's got no idea what he's saying.
Go.
You've got no idea what you're saying, Dave. What?
Say hello.
Hello.
Thank you. Welcome, Gull. And also, the other team member, we have Mr. Paul Tangent Richardson.
Hi, Paul. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
And we are joined by a guest. It's great. As I said, I mentioned that for listeners from all over the world, and so we are joined by one of our listeners, Mr. Lee Coulson. Hello, Lee.
Hey, Matt. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Great to have you here, Lee. I know we've communicated via Twitter for a while now, and Lee's on here to kind of go through his comic story. Like we've had a few guests on recently, so we're really looking forward to that. But Lee joins us all the way from. Is it a cliche to say sunny Australia?
No, it's been really warm this Easter weekend. It's been like 30 degrees Celsius. So,
Matt, sorry to interrupt. It's not sunny Australia. It's 8 p.m. out there.
No, I know, but it's generally sunny. I'm not doing a weather forecast. I'm not doing a live weather forecast.
Hello, and there's not going to be a hurricane. Hello.
It's not that sunny at the moment, in fairness to Goal. That's true, but in general, it is sunny. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's great to have you here, and as Goal was saying, it's 8 p.m. out there, and we've got up extra early for this, but we're enjoying it. We've had a couple of cups of coffee, and it's great to have you with us. So we'll go through the running order. Right. I'm going to do the social media feedback. Then obviously we're going to do the interview with Lee, just talk about his comic story, find out a bit about the team he supports as well, and comics in general over in Australia. Then we're going to do a bit, as Lee's here, then why not? Then we're going to do some Australian connections in the comics. So in Roy the Rovers, another comics. So it'd be interesting to go through that, and we'll probably share a few pictures on the screen here, so we can kind of share some of our memories. Then I've got a little quiz towards the end of the show as well.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah. Lucky, no, not a lot of knowledge is needed for it anyway. It's just a bit of fun. Just a bit of fun.
He says that now, yeah.
When you do really poorly, it's going to be a lot of fun for us, basically.
You're not going to mention it at all.
Yeah, no, not ever. Then we'll cover some future episodes, do the usual socials, and that's the show. How does that sound? Does that sound all right to everybody?
Yep. Looking forward to it again. It's great to have someone else on board, and crikey, stretching us far to Australia as well. Where we have no bounds anymore, do we? This has got to be a first for the pod, right?
Just want to mention, if anyone's wondering where Ridders is, he'll be back soon with his Ridders retro. Oh Christ!
Going well, wasn't it?
I've been drinking already. With his Ridders retro review and the theme tune, of course. So he'll be back soon. But hello, Ridders, and Simo as well. Hello, Simo. But yeah, carry on as you were.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think he's the last I heard, I think he's now in Jamaica. He's on to chapter 5 of the Hedgehog Jones story. I think he's got a title for it, Fear and Loathing in Riverton. That's his kind of working title at the moment. He's magnum opus. So yeah, hi Ridders. Okay, right. Well, on with the show.
Well, apparently, sorry to interrupt, he's there with his missus, and she didn't want to go. So I don't know, Jamaica.
No. I wondered where he was going with that. Oh dear, oh dear.
Lee, I did prepare you for this, Lee. And, well, you've listened to all of these. You must be prepared.
Considering it's Sunday morning, I'm impressed. This is...
Sunday morning. Do you know what? The clocks went forward last night in the United Kingdom. We're recording 60 billion hours earlier than we normally do. I'm surprised we're all here at the same time.
Look, the coordination is very impressive. I'm like, wow.
Dot's here as well. Do you want to hear from Dot?
How are you, Dot?
Oh, I say, it's Dr. Cotton here. I'm all right. Oh, hello, Lee. Do you want a Vegemite sandwich?
A Vegemite sandwich.
And a cup of tea.
I'm not sure what to say to that, Dot, but thank you.
That's all right. I'm surprised you don't know I am in Australia.
No, we got EastEnders here. My mum used to watch EastEnders. I didn't watch it as much, but she loved EastEnders. So.
Oh, I say, Dorothy Cotton, carry on.
Dorothy Cotton, global star.
But for listeners that usually played podcast bingo, there's a new one called Australian cliche bingo as well. So if anybody gets Vegemite sandwich, that's 10 points.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the bingo game was getting a bit stale, wasn't it? The same old words every week. So it's good to introduce a new feature to that this pod.
Yeah, at least you didn't say cobber or mate.
We knew we would be able to rely on you, Lee, for that.
That's a whole other script.
Just before we start, that leads me on to 3 questions. You say about, cobber and all of that. Well, actually, I've got 3 questions. Why do Australians answer their own questions? Shall I give you 3 examples? What's your name, Sheila? There you go. That's What's your favourite pastime or sport? And finally, and this is the shittest one, what's your favourite colour, Baloo?
We're setting the tone early, aren't we?
Well,
I'm really sorry if I'm offending you, Lee, but well.
No, I'm here for the band.
If you want to send in, or just actually verbalise your complaint, Lee, now, you're more than welcome to send it into the HR department, and we'll stick it with the rest of the pile.
I can take it. I'll give it back, but I can take it too. So.
Okay, well, please do. Right, social media feedback. As you can tell, we do try and get the social media feedback done in 5 minutes. It's usually half an hour. The last show, and that was an excellent show. That was episode 72 with Neil Bygone Berrigan. Everybody remembers that? That was a great show. So a friend of the show. Yeah, team member now. He's on the subs bench for when goal doesn't turn up. So we're looking forward to that. So the first, I posted some pictures on the Roy the Rovers Facebook site, and David Skew made a comment. I posted a picture of the first comic which Neil actually bought, which was September 1985. And David made a comment because he said it. He actually, at that point, he did the line work, but the colour was done in-house by IPC. So he's never really happy with that kind of colour work. And if you look at the cover, it does look very different. It looks, they all look extremely tanned. They've definitely been on the sunbed recently. Emlyn Hughes there, Roy and Blackie. So yeah. So thanks for that, David. Trevor Melvin, the Melvster. Melvin's Musings. Oh, so Melvin's Musings.
Melvin's
Where's
Musings.
Kings of Leon.
Hang on, I just press play because they're not here, obviously. Hang on. Ding! Whoa! It's Melvin's Musings.
Oh wow, that was quite extra longer then, wasn't it? With chat at the end. That's very, very jazz hands.
It's managed to get them to record a 12-inch now.
Oh, this is glorious.
Sorry, Matt. I apologise.
Any excuse. So Trevor says, Neil Bygone Berrigan delivers Champ We Are United debut to remember. It's official. Champ We Are United have a new comic book hero. Yes, remember the name Neil Berrigan, or Bygone Berrigan as he was christened by his teammates. If fans of the poddy had wondered how the comic book aficionado might react to being thrown into the deep end, they got their answer loud and clear early doors when his quick thinking has forwarded the mighty goal with an opportunity to chalk up a fine Mick Jagger impersonation. Bygone's first podcast assist. What a start.
All right, Mick Jagger.
Well done. Good stuff. However, the knowledgeable Northerner, who clearly has his UK football comic ink coursing through his veins, really endeared himself to the Champ We Are United faithful when he revealed his love of Roy the Rovers, and that he's a huge Darrell's Palace supporter, or Darrell's.
Yeah, we struggled on that, didn't we? All these years I've pronounced it, and now come on this pod and I don't know how to say it anymore.
It really was a dream debut for Bygone. Line up alongside the experienced Mute Button Matt, Tangent Paul, and goal. Mute Button Matt captained the side with the assurance of Roy Race, whilst Tangent Paul led the line like Steve Marks in his Kings Bay pomp. Bell, of course, gave another. Yeah, you'd be happy with that, yeah.
Yeah, very happy with that.
To be mentioned in the same line as Steve Marks.
Very happy with that. I was very, very happy with that.
Gull, of course, gave another virtuoso performance whilst operating in the corridor of uncertainty with Dot Cotton.
Oh, I say, Dr. Cotton.
And George Formby.
Turn that nice again.
Who we're gullibly informed is famous for his lean, mean grilling machine. Yeah, that was a revelation, wasn't it?
It was.
Obviously, every silver lining has a cloud, which on this occasion was the absence of Ridders, who is believed has been given a late winter break by management to presumably reboot for what would be a tough running for the podcast team, with more special guests on the horizon. Yep, I'll talk about that later. The man of the match performance from Bygone Berrigan will live long in the memory, and fans will be excited to know that the newcomer has already agreed personal terms to return to the podcast side and name his comic book 11. Can't wait. Thanks for the great escape. Matthew Richards, Paul Richardson, Brett Mayer, Ian Ridaway, and of course, Neil Berrigan. And then also he finishes with, just to echo Tangent Paul's pre-match podcast comments, thank you for the music. Thank you for the music. Tim Skew, what a tune. It's up there with the original match of the day and sports report themes for me, packed full of traditional match day expectancy and excitement. Wonderful stuff.
Tangent, are you going to get your trumpet out?
Let me see. I'll have to get the dust off of it first, but I'll see what I can do.
Oh, no, you take your time. I've already got the horn.
Oh, God.
That's two episodes running I've done that joke.
Yeah, I've lined you up both times without realising it. That's what's more concerning.
You always do. You have no idea what you're saying most of the time.
Yep, you got me there.
Neil went back to Trevor with a fantastic and much appreciated review. Great chatting with the lads. I was made to feel at home right away. I can confirm I will return with a starting 11 plus 2 subs in the future. A classic 4-4-2. I can only confirm at this point that Wilson, Hughes, and the Kemp brothers are out. He's definitely
He's gone controversial early.
He's gone controversial. Yeah.
But in all fairness, he's put a stake into the ground and he's letting us know. It's going to be very interesting.
And Tim came back. Tim Skew said, "Thank you, Trevor. You made my day. Friend of the show. Thanks for the lovely comment." And he said, then he just listened to the podcast and he said, "I'm so glad you all like it. And one day I'll let you know the musicians' names."
Yeah.
So obviously we know it's Tangent on his trumpet. Tangent on his trumpet, eh? God, there we go.
I'll tell you what, I've got rid of the horn now. I'm now on my organ.
Oh gosh.
Oh God, it's too early for this.
I guess still here.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Lee, I've got
really,
10 out of 10 for patience.
You should do these morning pods more regularly, I think.
Why? What are you saying? Our nighttime pods are shit.
Well, there's a pep in your stride, goal. This is like
More than the pep in his strides.
Yeah, exactly. Now that he's, oh no, I'm going to leave it there.
Okay, all right.
Moving on.
Leave
Richard
it.
Woods.
Just leave it. Will you change it? Leave it.
Was that Mike Reid?
Yeah.
Mike Reid, doesn't it? Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Mike Reid. Yeah.
Ricky.
Or was it Pat? Pat, was it? No, Frank Butcher.
Frank
Butcher. He's EastEnders, yeah.
Mm.
Richard Woods. So great listen, guys. Need to try and find the comic dates for Canon, as he did read it back in the day. So we mentioned Canon a few times.
We mentioned Canon, we really would be good to research that, Richard. And sort of, I think you mentioned, sorry, Matt, stealing a bit of your thunder, but that'd be brilliant if you can do that, Richard, and love you to come on as well, because Canon is a story that I've got a real deep interest in and really remember reading as a youngster, but it's something lacking in my collection. So that'd be a really good one for a future pod, I think.
Yeah, a few people have mentioned that as well. I know Terence Angus, I'll do some feedback on him. He's mentioned it a few times. He also adds that his first Football Picture Story monthly was also bought in the early 90s in Newquay. Because Neil mentioned he bought his in Devon.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Really, 5 of us about like we got our first one when we were on holiday or stuff like that. It's quite amazing that happened.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. And then we've got Ian Peff.
He's fallen asleep.
He can't get a word in.
Yeah, exactly. Mind you, in all fairness, do you know what? Let's just let Matt get through the feedback, because otherwise there'll be no time left for Lee. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is Lee's show, not our show.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, right. The next one, Ian Peffick. He said Durrell's Palace was one of his favourite stories from that era, and it contrasted well with the Royal Rovers story of the time. And he mentioned, Emlyn Hughes, Bob Wilson, the Spandau Ballet.
True.
And I think there's a lot of true. There's a lot of people did like Durrell's Paris, and he said, as the podcast under feature, and the answer is no. We've mentioned it quite a few times, but we definitely will do in the future.
Well, I think, without maybe give the game away too much, but maybe after Neil's done his 11, he could start thinking about something like that for the future as well, couldn't he?
Yeah.
He's
absolutely.
the big Palace fan.
Yeah. Oh, just please not mention Palace, please.
Sorry.
It could be Crystal Palace. It makes me feel sick.
Sorry, he's the big Durrell's Palace fan.
Durrell's Palace, the better Palace.
The better Palace. The only Palace. I think you'll find.
Palace.
The only Palace.
I'll tell you
won't get Dan Wayne at Selhurst Park other than taking Durrell's there for an easy 3-0 victory. There you go, Matt.
I'll tell you something, Tangent. You've already mentioned Crystal Palace. I'll tell you, if you mention Exeter City, I'm quitting.
Exeter City.
So thanks for those comments, Ian. Moving on to the Champ We Are United Facebook site. Got a few comments on here. Ian Ridaway, hi Ridders, said he really enjoyed the show. And
presenter on the show.
Presenter on the show, yeah, and also a friend. P.S. goal, the Kings of Leon was very good.
Wow, I tell you what, it'd be interesting to hear what Ridders thinks about today's rendition, because I must admit that record button's getting better every week.
I know. It's like I make it up as I go along. I don't. Hey?
Your neighbours must love you.
Hey, there's one for Lee.
So, I didn't even mean that.
All right. I
Bingo.
was going to do an impression then, and the first two words came out of my mouth, and I realised it sounded nothing like Australian, so I stopped.
Well, it didn't stop you earlier. But anyway, okay, that's fine.
Which mean earlier hasn't stopped him for 73 pods. Has it?
Baldy Man. So Simo.
Hey,
Hi,
Simo. Hi, Simo.
He says a bit of a pattern here because he found his first Football Pitch Story Monthly when he was on holiday in Skegness.
Wow, Skeggy, yes.
Yeah,
I've had
Skeggy,
holiday there,
So yeah, thanks, Simo. Terence Angus, who's again mentions about the cannon strips, and maybe one day you might come on an episode to discuss them. So yeah, you're absolutely welcome,
I tell
Terence,
you what,
anytime.
I think we're building a pod here. That's 2 people we can get on.
I think maybe we can
Cannon.
do an episode with like 20 people on one day. So if you just do that, we can have like 20 people on the screen. It'd be like punchlines or
Be
celebrity
amazing.
squares.
Be amazing. 20 people and none of them.
Hang on. Bloody good idea. Tell you what, all have the episode off, and I'll do all 20 of them.
That's what I was going to say. 20 people and nobody speaking other than goal.
Well, one person will enjoy that anyway. And Adrian Lord, friend of the show.
Friend of the show, yeah.
Friend of the show.
Friend
Great
of the
podcast
show.
again. Great podcast again, guys. He likes the idea of a 1 to 11. So he said, have we thought about doing our own United 11, maybe a Manchester 11, or the Rovers? So I think we'll probably do that as a future episode. Maybe have all of us choose us an 11.
I think that's one that can be really explored because it's almost unlimitless. As you say, you've got the clubs, you've got the various stories, you've got the different publications. But I'll shut up now because we need to get through this.
No, it's fine. But no, you're right.
I've lined up 2 specials. Sorry, 2 special pods there. We get a Cannon special, and then I think and a 1 to 11 specials as well. We could do.
Oh Christ, we're never going to finish doing this podcast, are we? We're going on forever. Yeah, we've got too much stuff to do.
We'll be doing it from beyond the grave, like many of Goal's voices.
Anthony, we're doing right now.
You're really going for it today, yeah? You got the whole repertoire, haven't you? It's impressive stuff. And Adrian said that he picked up his first Football Picture Story Monthly at a paper shop outside Elmfield Park in Doncaster.
Right.
He went in after playing tennis, and they had both issues 1 and 2.
Yes.
I think. Did you say you bought the first 2, Paul, together? A few people said that.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Time.
Well, they were released two each month. So
yeah.
And
finally, last but not least, on the Twitter, we have our fabulous guest today. We have Primary Industries librarian, Mr. Lee Coulson. So another lovely episode, chaps. Lots of nice nostalgia and detours down memory lane. Not to mention Penny Lane.
Oh, yes,
good stuff there.
Very good.
Like it. Bygones, Berrigan is going to be a hard act to follow. Great memories and insights into your comic collecting days during the 80s and beyond. Thanks for sharing it all. Yeah, so
nice.
There we go. That's the feedback.
I put it on record that I apologise to Lee now because I didn't shut up with the impressions. I'm so sorry. It is your show today, so looking forward to it.
I'm here for it. So I said to Matt in our chats, I hope Goal breaks out as many Aussie impersonations as he can.
Hello, possums!
Dear.
Then again, there can be.
Then again, yeah. Then again,
how many impersonations you want as well. Man, there's a balance.
There's a balance.
Yeah, there is a balance. We never find it, Lee, but you're right. There is a balance. I think before you go, sorry, Matt, I was just going to say once again, brilliant to hear all the feedback, and I know we do say it is much appreciated. And please, guys, keep it coming. It does, help us and gives us incentive to carry on. But like we've said as well, we've got some of you guys coming on now, and it's really good. I think a lot of people can contribute. So as well as that feedback, give us a little nod, and we'd love to hear you and get you on the pod and hear your stories as well.
And I think I'd like to add to that as well, that the fact that we're sort of, with respect, we're a victim of our own success, that we're getting so much feedback now is brilliant. that it might be sensible in some future episodes if there's a lot to split it into two parts. So, we don't go on for the first half an hour, blowing smoke up our own arses.
Well, you know what? I think what I'll do next time is I'll just talk about the positive feedback from me. I'm sure everybody agrees to that, right? Everybody's agreeing. Yeah, everybody put their hands up. Everybody's in full agreement on that.
Another man of the match performance by Matt.
Thank you. I mean, that's important. I think that's the important stuff. I think that's the stuff everybody wants to hear.
I put my hand up.
Okay. Right. Anyway, let's moving on to the agenda. Oh God, Lee, it's nice to meet you, and it's nice to welcome you on the pod. Like we said earlier, this is just we're going to kind of just a bit of a chat, really, with you about comics and football and stuff, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, before we kick off, just tell us a bit about yourself.
Look, thank you for making the time and letting me come on. So I sort of threw it out there as a suggestion to perhaps have a chat and join you guys. So really appreciate the chance to do so. So hopefully can maybe bring in a little bit of a different perspective, maybe the overseas experience of the comics and the magazines and that sort of stuff. So so obviously I'm in Australia. So I was born in the UK though. So I was actually born in Enfield. So
oh wow, yeah. Oh, that explains part of what you're going to tell us today then, I think.
Yes. So
did you say you're from Australia?
Sorry, go on, Lee. Go on. The clocks may have moved forward, but gold didn't come with them.
So I moved out to Australia when I was quite young, though. So started life in the UK, and so Enfield is North London, I believe. I probably should know this. I think it's kind of going out into maybe suburban London a little bit. So I came out to Australia with my family when I was 4. So pretty much lived in Australia most of my life, really. Yeah. So, but I do have those roots in the UK, and sort of that's my background a little bit. So and that's probably what got me into the comics, I think, and football in general. I mean, I'm not sure if I hadn't been born there, I don't know, but that's what got me started, really. That's sort of
interesting.
Because my father, like a lot of the guests or probably listeners, it comes through your family or it comes through your dad or another relative that gets started. So for me, it was Dad who got me started on football and the comics and the magazines and everything. So so he had read Roy himself in Tiger growing up.
Oh wow!
So,
wow, right,
So and he was already getting Shoot magazine, probably in the 70s before, when it's first started, sort of thing. So when we moved here, like I started getting Roy. I was about 6 years old, so I was pretty young probably to get the comic.
Yeah.
I started getting it around 81, like sort of the 81 period. So so I was born 75, so I was sort of about 6 when I started getting into comics and Roy.
Yeah.
And I actually dug out, I don't think this was my first ever issue, but it was one of the ones I really remember very much from.
That's sorry for listeners. Lee's holding up a copy. Is that around August 81? Or July?
So July 4, 80. So
it's the one where Roy comes out. I think it's just after, I can't remember who they played against, but he comes into the dressing room, and then he just randomly after a match goes, "Hey guys, I've got something to show you." So they come off a pitch, he goes in and he gets changed, and he comes out in the new Gola strip. Yeah. So it's really iconic.
And I seem to remember, because the thing about that as well, although I hadn't been reading it necessarily myself that long, but that really was a massive change, because the strip before it had been kind of present for years, right? So it really was like, wow, what what's this? And of course, a sponsor as well, Gola, written across it, was amazing, wasn't it?
It really was, yeah. Yeah, so go on, carry on, Lee. Yeah, that's great. You've got that copy
look,
there.
I mean, I've got issues before that, but that's the one in my memory that really sticks as being, like I think the reason for that is because it features in there, like the goal in this issue, the goal feature is the Ricky Villa.
Oh,
yeah.
right, yes.
You
Yeah.
jinxed through.
Yeah.
So come on
I
then, Lee. I
mentioned-
think you're going to have to give the game away there as to why that's special for you as well.
Well, yeah. So obviously, being from the part of London I'm from, and with my family background, I'm a Spurs supporter. I'm a Tottenham supporter. So, and the reason for that is because most of my family are Tottenham. Like nearly everyone's Tottenham. Like a lot of my family are actually from Tottenham. That's where my parents are from, and most
Sure.
of my immediate family. So I grew up with Spurs from as far back as I can remember. So
Yeah.
and the 81 FA Cup was my first FA Cup that I also remember. So it was that sort of double, memory of not only my first FA Cup, but Spurs winning the FA Cup. So, and when I was a kid,
Yeah.
of course, I thought that would happen a lot more, which obviously it has.
Yeah.
So I got off. Unfortunately, they sort of, like typically Tottenham, they gave me false hopes in a very early age.
I mean,
So
sorry, carry on.
Go on. No, go on,
I
go
was
on.
going to say I have great memories as well of that watching that, Ardiles and Ricky Villa, and it was just amazing. But just to mention, 1987 Torquay United won, Tottenham Hotspur nil.
How is that relevant at all? It's just a blatant.
Fine. You ruined one of the greatest moments of my life. That's fine.
Blatant attempt to get Torquay winning the game recorded somewhere.
And for those of you listeners out there that might not be aware of this was in fact the last time Torquay United won a football match.
I'm happy to give Gull a bit of glory. I mean, it's.
He's a nice guy, Lee. You're too nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't know what else Torquay have ever done or won. Like,
I like that comment as well.
Oh, Christ.
And Lee giveth and Lee taketh away. So just saying that, Lee, that as you say, that's really interesting as well, because that's such an iconic goal. I mean, I'm sure we hope that people always debate in the FA Cup, but that goal will be talked about for many a year to come and shown probably when they're doing the finals. And of course, my memory of that as well is that was actually a replay that was played on the Wednesday evening under the floodlights at Wembley after a 1-1 draw on Saturday. And I kind of, a bit similar to yourself, that's the real first FA Cup final that I remember kind of watching on my own without sort of other family members and stuff. But yeah, that's really interesting to see that in that edition. I can see why that would resonate with you. Yeah,
I think probably even more than the new strip being unveiled. I probably didn't realise how what a moment that was. It was my first year reading the comic, really. So I don't think I hadn't grown up on the old strip, or later on I collected a lot of old annuals. I went back a bit.
Yeah.
I saw how important the other strip was. But I think just in terms of memories, that was an issue that really jumped out at me and kind of hooked me a little bit too, like that, because growing up here we were pretty starved for information, and I think this is maybe a little bit why the comic, not only for the stories but the features and the posters, because we had very little, especially in the 80s. It changed a lot when the Premier League started and we got, wall-to-wall soccer or football. But growing up, there was, Australia is not a soccer country. It's, and I guess the fact that I'm even using the word soccer probably gives that away a bit. Like, I was thinking, should I call it soccer or football? Like, because
Yeah, but so just to interrupt, you say that, but when you look back,
Yeah.
and that's a common thing for people to think it's very Americanized and stuff like that. But when you look back in the 50s and 60s, a lot of the time they did use the word soccer in annuals, football annuals. A lot of time, so it's interesting. It's not just I mean, it's fine. You can use either. Yeah.
And I do remember, I don't think I probably picked it up at the time, but shoot, especially, it always tended to use soccer more than football.
Yeah.
So it might even have been actually on their front cover. Did they was their tagline?
It probably did. Probably sometimes. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, you're right. It's funny. But again, I would say in everyday life, nobody I know, any football fan I talk to, nobody would use the word term soccer in having a conversation or a chat. It's one of those ones where you're right. It was used more than we remember, but it's always football, always. Yeah.
And I wonder, I mean, maybe Barry would know this, but I've thought since, was that deliberate on the part of the magazines, knowing that there was an overseas market that didn't necessarily call it football? Like, were they thinking a little bit on the market potential for
it could have been. It could have been probably more global. Could have been. Yeah, it is an interesting one.
You should put that to him when he comes on again.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we're gonna get Barry on again once. Perhaps maybe in the summertime or something like that. We'll think of some more questions for him. So it's a good one, Lee. Yeah.
Sorry, Lee, can I fire a question at you there? That's interesting, sort of wondering about the difference between receiving the comic in the UK and overseas. So as you say, I mean, whether you can remember, I'm not quizzing you on the exact date, but that version was the 4th of July. But when you received it, kind of what on the dates on the issues, were you getting them roughly that same time, or would it be a week later or 2 weeks later? Because in my mind, I always think back then it was, in Australia you'd have to wait to 2-3 weeks for your edition of Roy the Rovers.
Oh no, longer tangent. Like
wow,
it was between 4 to 6 weeks. Like between so following what you would have read and got in the UK, at least a month, but up to 6 weeks. Like, and sometimes it would be, they would even, miss a week, like, or they wouldn't deliver for a week because the shipment hadn't arrived.
Right, yeah.
And then sometimes you get 2 issues, like come the next week.
Okay.
Like cracking open an egg and getting a double yolk. I bet that was celebration times, right?
So, it didn't matter so much with Roy, because Roy wasn't really a topical magazine. It was mainly and it didn't really tie itself too much into the real soccer world so much.
Correct.
But it was more of like Shoot magazine. It was 6 weeks before you got to read, and match report. I mean, we always got the results. Like the local media would print the results in the paper, usually on Monday or Tuesday, like after the weekend. So I'd always get to see the results, and it'd be a little write up, maybe like a little summary write up. But I think we were, when I look back at it, and this is going to sound pretty old fogey-ish, but we were pretty starved of information and.
Interesting.
There was very little on TV. Like we would get match of the day sporadically, usually like 2 or 3 weeks.
Right.
So it wasn't like the same. It wasn't, because I don't know how they transported the film, whether they literally shipped it, flew it, or it wasn't sad. But it was pretty hit and miss. You get match of the day, but that was usually screened in. Like it'd be late night Friday or something. It wasn't, it wasn't because, Australia, soccer is really popular here, and it's become more and more popular especially as the national teams have got more successful and World Cup. And when we had that sort of wave of players.
You had a little golden generation, didn't you? With
we did.
Harry Kewell and Viduka and all those guys.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Coulson and the gang.
Yeah, we had Kewell and Yeah, celebrate good times. Yeah.
Hey.
He fits in perfectly, doesn't he?
So, but up until probably the mid-90s, it was slim pickings, like in terms of, and I think the comics and the magazines, they became, obviously they were really enjoyable. I just used to enjoy the stories, but they were also a bit of a lifeline, because it was a little bit, soccer was very much seen as like the sort of poor cousin in Australia. Not so much now. I think Australia's caught up to the fact that, it really is the biggest game in the world. It is the biggest sport. And especially, with the Women's World Cup held here last year, that was huge. Like, the country just went crazy for that World Cup,
So just on that then, Lee, when you're talking about how big the sport, and obviously it's bigger now in Australia. At the time, what would you say? And I know you were kind of around the Adelaide area. That's where you kind of live, isn't it? What in kind of order of popularity? What were the most kind of popular sports at the time? Because I know it's different around different parts of Australia, isn't it? From what I understand.
Yeah. So the homegrown code, like, it's called Australian rules.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen much of that.
Been to a match at the Oval. Yeah. Been to a live match at the Oval. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's the dominant football code, I guess, in Australia. Like, that's, but it's unique somewhat to Australia. Like, it's a bit like America with American football. It's huge in this country, but it obviously hasn't translated much to other countries. Like, it's and then rugby would be the second biggest football code. So both union and league are very popular here. And then soccer, or world football, sort of, they call it sort of the world game here, world football, to sort of distinguish it a bit.
Okay.
That probably comes in at number 3. It's kind of, it is, even now, like, even with the success of the national team and the local competition, and it's still sort of, it's definitely third tier, like, even even today. So but even more so in the 80s, like, it was seen very much as a game played by migrants, which it principally was. In the 80s, soccer in Australia was very much had been sort of started really by a lot of the European migrants that came out here. Not just the Brits, but we had the Italians, Greeks, and Croats and Germans. And most of the clubs grew up around those, the sort of social clubs that were started, when the various, European migrants came out. They typically started like their own clubs, and the football then sort of a extension of those clubs. So the part of Adelaide I grew up in there were a lot of British expats who sort of grew up in the same area I did. So I grew up around a lot of kids that were either second generation or a bit like myself, maybe been born there and come out quite young, sort of thing. So there definitely was a soccer, community, but it was quite small, and it was sort of, and there wasn't much in the way of information or media. Like, you sort of had to really scout it out and find it. So
it's really, I mean, it's obvious when you hear it, you saying that. I mean, we've often discussed it on episodes, the fact that when we started to read comics, there was a lot less information even in the UK on football compared to what it is now, growing up in the 70s and 80s. But to kind of take that to the other side of the world, when it's not even the most popular sport, in the country, you can just kind of imagine, and the void that the comics or magazines would have filled. I'm sure there's those weeks where you weren't actually receiving your copy, it would have been like, oh my God, I really want the copy to kind of turn up. It's your fix of football, really, and soccer. Yeah.
Well, it was a special order. I think later on they started stocking the magazines and the comics, but you actually, it wasn't like you could go into the newsagent and pick up Roy or Shoot, or
you had to subscribe.
You had to support them, and
okay.
For you. So I think you know, and I was soccer mad growing up. Like I played it, you know, sort of lived for it really. So the comics, and you know, it was mainly Roy and Shoot. That was kind of my go-tos for most of the 80s. I collected and read those magazines probably for about 10 years. And
Right. Okay. So you started in around about 81 for like 10. Yeah. For quite.
Yeah.
Go on.
I went
Just
to about.
Sorry, go on.
Maybe this is fairly typical. I started about 6 or so, and I probably dropped off about 15, 16. I was sort of.
You did quite well there, Lee, because you know, I think a lot of people even dropped off before that. It's very rare that people like me started at about 8, 9 and carried on well still into their 50s. Yeah,
59,
didn't actually
58,
stop.
59.
Yeah. Most people have stopped and then come back to it. I just didn't stop. But I found that everybody's come back to me, so that's good.
Yes, that's true.
Well, I wouldn't mind mentioning to any of the listeners. Sometimes we are talking across each other accidentally, and that's because obviously I think there's just a slight delay in the Zoom. I say we're on Zoom. Actually, no, we're just shouting across the continent. That's what we're doing.
Well, I was going to say it's your fault for sharing the satellite link with Live Aid.
I know. I mean, you know, no, don't do an impression. No, oh, David Bowie.
It's a bit in excess, isn't it? A bit in excess.
Hey,
I love in
hey.
excess. I loved in excess. I did. Yeah.
Brilliant.
He's coming with the jokes, isn't he?
He's coming quick.
As we can. So yeah, so I think just maybe to round it off, like I was kind of hungry for anything I could get, like in terms of you know, soccer media or soccer information, but it was quite scarce. So I think the comics were a bit of a lifeline for me, you know, like because I didn't see games. I couldn't go and see Tottenham play. I've never actually seen Tottenham play a proper game. Like I've seen them in Australia. I've toured.
Yeah.
And a lot of teams would come out here during the off season. So I've seen a lot of, you know, friendlies, I guess. I saw Manchester United and Forest and Spurs and Rangers, you know, various European teams. So there was typically a summer tournament, or would have been, you know, Northern Summer. They would come out here in Northern Summer. So I kind of, it was a little bit sort of not secondhand, but I was kind of very much at a distance. So I was kind of, and there weren't many kids, even though a lot of kids played soccer, not many wanted to sort of read about it or, you know, go that next, you know, I was kind of, so not many people read. I mean, I'm sure there was a pretty decent market here for Roy and Shoe. I'm sure they, you know, they sold here, but I didn't really know anyone else who read the comics and magazines. So I was kind of a bit on my own too. It's sort of like,
yes, interesting.
Well, apart from my family, but it's kind of. Yeah.
I think it's interesting there, Lee, though, because I sort of recognise that, and we've mentioned this, but you know, as a youngster, when I was reading the comics, I mean, I certainly remember after a period of time, my grandparents used to get them, and I used to go and visit every week with my cousin, and he used to get Tiger, and I used to get Roy the Rovers. So obviously, you know, we had that. But when I went to school, and at the time I went to the same primary school as my cousin, but I don't ever remember talking to anybody at school about the comics or ever seeing anybody else with the comic. But it's slightly different to you. Obviously, people were talking, and we were all talking about football. But you know, we've mentioned this on the pod about the age range, and I think for youngsters, you know, hearing your story, even I am sort of a bit surprised, although shouldn't be really, but you know, people now, as a youngster today with Sky and TNT Sports and everything, literally there's a football match on every night that you can watch live. But it's interesting to hear what you said there, even about Match of the Day. I mean, but back then in the early 80s and late 70s, and the guys can correct me, but from what I remember, Match of the Day was on Saturday evening, and then there was the big match on ITV on Sunday. So we had 2 weekly highlights programs, but we didn't have live football. And that's why, you know, going back to that edition of Roy the Rovers and that Ricky Villa goal, you know, even me as an Arsenal fan, though, I massively remember that final because again, and everybody did, because the cup final, it was the only live club match, unless an English team made the European Cup final, but it was the one guaranteed club live football match that you would have every season. It was the FA Cup final. And of course, now when we think about the absolute plethora of coverage and football out there, I must admit, I'm now of the opinion that I think there's too much, but there you go.
Yeah,
it's sort of famine to feast these days, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's good hearing that because we really only got the FA Cup. That was kind of it, really. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I didn't even really see a World Cup properly till Italia '90. Like,
that's interesting because Lee, I wanted to ask you there actually, and I've kind of just had a little look because my first World Cup that I remember, and I don't want to annoy you because I did watch virtually every game live, but of course New Zealand qualified and it was Spain 1982, and I was going to ask you, but you may have already sort of answered that. I was wondering although it's New Zealand and not Australia, I was wondering what kind of coverage that might have got at the time.
It would have been on the news. They would have perhaps just mentioned it on the nightly news.
Right.
Maybe there was. We may have got the final. They may have been the final in live. I've got a vague memory of the '86 final. Actually, Argentina, Germany being live in Australia. But of course, all these games for us are very late at night or the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Until I was a bit older, it wasn't really something my parents would let me do. Like, I do remember, I guess, the '87 final, the FA Cup final. Disappointingly, I did stay up for that one. And, obviously the result didn't go in our favour. But and
91. Did you watch 91?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that. And I didn't realise that would kind of be it, really, for Spurs. Like, I didn't.
You never know. Well,
you never know. There's I'm just sorry, I can't resist this as an Arsenal fan now, and apologies. But that 87 Cup final, I'll never forget standing.
Sorry, hold on a second, Paul. So you don't want to talk about the 91 semi-final then? Have you just kind of blacked that out of your mind? Are you going back to 87?
We can circle back to that if you want in a minute. But we were concentrating on the 87 final at the moment, weren't we? So I just wanted to say I was standing in the Arsenal shop by Highbury. And it was probably actually 89 round about then. Actually, it was a good couple of seasons after. And I remember my mate, and behind the till, they had a big picture of Keith Houchin and that diving header. And I remember my mate going, "Why have you got a picture of Coventry?" And I sort of everybody just looking at him going, "Because they beat Tottenham in the cup final, and that was the winning goal." But they did actually have that picture in the Arsenal shop. And so to circle it back for you, there wasn't a picture of Gazza's goal in '91 against David Seaman
when Seaman pushed it into the corner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I guess I got a lot of this second hand, so a lot of my, I played football, soccer growing up for a local club, and most of the people involved were probably from a British background. So I would sort of get the banter between the dads, like the dads, they were from all over the UK, from London and the Midlands and the North and Scotland. And so I'd be hearing them banter about their teams and different stuff like that. And obviously we got a lot of British TV shows and stuff like that. So I was pretty familiar with British humour and, how it worked and stuff. But it was not...
Any particular British TV show?
Be careful what you say, Lee.
Look, as a kid, it would have been things like The Goodies and Kenny Everett, those sort of things. Like, Are You Being Served? And I mean, I don't know if that's opening the door to anything from.
The door's continually open. I don't know.
I was going to say
the door is always open.
I guess. Yeah, obviously, my parents, they were probably a bit homesick, I guess, looking at it now. We grew up watching lots of British TV and movies. And, my parents had grown up in the 60s and 70s in London, so there was lots of yeah, lots of that in the house, and then later on, my grandparents moved out, and my aunts, so I was sort of surrounded a lot by UK people, but it was
Expats,
also but there was also a bit of a distance because I was obviously in Australia, and that's where I've grown up, and that's my main influence as well. So I was kind of like
you're Australian. About putting words in your mouth, but you feel more Australian than you do British, even though you're born here because you moved over when you were 4.
Yeah.
So and playing a sport that's kind of, I don't know what the equivalent would be in the UK, but someone who plays a less popular sport, which is not widely played or
No,
watched.
in all fairness, there's a lot of people play cricket in the UK.
Cricket's no. There's a lot, you get a lot. American football's quite popular over here now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's more
Well,
popular,
so actually saying that, because obviously, there's a lot of Antipodeans, shall we say, over here, and that I mentioned that I went to the AFL game. I was asked, I never did actually go and play, but there is actually like a Sunday league, AFL league, over here, run by ex-Aussies, but there is rules in that, and so the rules are that every team, I believe, has to have a certain percentage of players that aren't from Australia or New Zealand, so that there are UK-based players in there as well. Yeah.
Look, so I don't think it will ever catch on. They've tried blending it with Gaelic football as well over the years.
I've seen they used to play, didn't they? A game, that was something to behold. There was a lot going off, shall we just say, in those matches.
No, it didn't. It was a strange hybrid of the two. It didn't quite work, but So, but I guess that's probably my soccer journey and experience growing up. I did get a few other little odds and ends where I could. Like, I was actually going to ask you, Paul, like, do you remember, it only ran fairly briefly, but there was a comic or magazine called Top Soccer. It was an IPC publication.
Do you know something? Do you know what? I have heard of that, but I've never seen it. I've only kind of heard of it and seen things on the web, and I don't really know anything about that, but I've definitely heard of it, yes. In fact, it's interesting you should say that, because I haven't thought, or even through the pod, that's one of those ones that I'd kind of forgotten about, actually.
Well, I guess because I would jump on anything I could. I picked up, it only ran for, it was less than a year. I doubt whether it even made a year.
Do you know what year that was? Do you remember, Lee?
Was it early 70s, wasn't it?
No, early 80s, I think.
Early 80s,
it ran for maybe 80, 81, crossed over between 80, 81.
Wow.
And they got one annual out of it as well. And then I think it was IPC. They were trying to do like a junior shoot. It was kind of a strange mix of. I think it was just kind of a shoot for the younger market, but perhaps it just didn't take off because it stopped, within about a year or so. So
just looking at Tangent, who's looking off screen at the moment. He's already placed a bid on eBay.
I was going to say, he's now got it. Yeah. He's now got it. It'll be delivered next Tuesday, 1 p.m.
17 editions I've just found out of that. Yeah.
17.
So the last, not that many. No, the last one, was the 5th of Jan 1980. Launched September 79. Yeah, but actually, the one thing I'm finding here is the person saying exactly what you said there, Lee. It's like, don't really understand why IPC were launching this when Shoot was still operating.
I mean, I didn't get it at the time. I picked it up at a second-hand shop, I think, a few years later. I would always, zero in on if I could find something soccer related, like in a bookshop or garage sale or something. So because there really wasn't many options, like I'd even I was quite a big reader of soccer novels growing up. I used to like Michael Hardcastle, those sort of books, and Brian Glanville stories, just to fill in the gaps as well. So
Brian Glanville, crikey, doyen of football journalism there.
Yeah.
Name drop there, I've got to say.
The legend.
And he wrote
Yeah,
he wrote a few novels too. He wrote some soccer novels, football novels.
Oh, did he?
As well. So,
Okay.
Right, interesting.
So so
What about thinking about the comics? So you spoke about the comics you read. What about your favourite stories in the comics, or whether it's Roy the Rovers or characters, storylines? What kind of stood out apart from obviously 81 was kind of like you started reading? What are your favourites?
I mean, I'd always turn to Roy first. Like I tended not to read cover to cover. I tended to I always started with Roy. He was I'd go to his, obviously it was his magazine and it was a colour strip. So I'd always turn to Roy first. And I was thinking about that because you sort of, sent a couple of questions through. I think I liked, outside of Roy, my favourites would have been probably Tommy's Troubles and Mighty Mouse and Daryl's Palace. I always pronounce it Daryl's, by the way.
I think that is the correct pronunciation. It's me that keeps throwing the curveball in there.
but I'm open to suggestions.
And why those stories? Do you think back why you're drawn to those?
He didn't draw them.
Oh,
Since I said that, I knew
he's still here, listeners.
Well, that's an opening. I think I liked Mouse, but this might be a bit sacrilegious. I thought Mouse and Hamish were the best art because we got Tiger as well for a while. Got Tiger. I thought it was the best artwork in the comics. Like
it's incredible.
The detail, the little touches, and Mouse was funny. Like it was, it was probably the only out and out comedic strip, really. I mean, Hamish as well. Like they were certainly my dad's favourites. Like when he would pretty much, read Roy and Mouse.
Brilliant.
Yes,
because he played for Tottenham. He played for Tottenham.
It
always
exactly.
made me think of Tottenham as well.
That might have been a little bit of the appeal as well. That he played for Tottenham. So I like Mouse. I think probably like Daryl's Palace for the opposite reason. The fact that it was so realistic. Like it was probably how I imagined football. It was the closest to probably real football, I would think, that the comic got. So I think, it was really gritty, and the artwork there was really good too. It sort of conveyed that sort of, struggling club on the verge of collapse, and like playing in this dilapidated stadium, and it wasn't glamorous, like like it didn't have the glamour of Roy, or it was sort of like, this is a club that's kind of teetering on the edge, and you could sort of I liked that, but probably for the realism and the artwork. And
I was just wondering there, Lee, as well, sorry, on the Daryl's Palace, I was wondering if that kind of struck home a little bit as well at that time, because that was probably the story a little bit with teams in Australia, right?
Oh yeah, the league is pretty decent these days, but in the 80s it was a pretty, it was probably semi-professional at best, really. Like you would get small attendances, and probably the standard was fairly decent, but it was not a high-profile professional league. So. I didn't think of that angle, but that could have been a reason too. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's funny.
The local clubs actually did often get guest players come out. That was something that was a big deal.
Okay.
So we would usually get players either who were pretty much at the end of their career, just coming out to make a few dollars, probably just to top up their pension. And so I saw Mick Shannon a few times. He came out and played for one of the local teams. I saw Justin Fashanu,
Oh, wow. Okay.
Torquay
Which-
United legend. He played for Torquay.
Yeah, and I mean, he obviously, I don't know how he ended up in Australia, whether it was, during the off season or it was during a period when he wasn't traveling so well. Like, because I know he had his issues in football.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So you can't
I
remember
didn't
when he
see-
came over, what years they came over? Was this? It's I'm guessing this is mid-80s. If Shannon's still playing as well.
I reckon.
Sorry to
pretty sure
interrupt. I'm just going to check Wikipedia, so I'll come back with the answer.
Yeah, probably Mick Shannon would have been mid-80s. I think he had probably retired or was very close to retiring. And
Yeah.
and I didn't see them, but I know they also brought out Bobby Charlton and George Best, and they've only played a few games. It was very much just like
Exhibition match. So
it was the local comp, but it definitely put it brought crowds in.
Right. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Go and see, and I remember my dad would sort of say, "Look, watch Shannon or Fashion, like watch how they really do it, like watch their positioning and their movement off the ball, and
okay.
try and learn from them, because it was the closest I could get to seeing real football, I guess. Sort of seeing these guys."
Mick Shannon. Yeah, funny playing Mick Shannon. He was, his biggest period, I guess, was in the 70s, where England just didn't have a really good team, really. So it's kind of, to me, he's almost like one of those forgotten players. But he was a top player in the 70s, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I'm sure
maybe more famous for his celebration when he used to
with
his
a
arm
swinging
around,
arm.
didn't he? Swing his arm around.
It's kind of. I mean, in fact, ITV did a documentary, and it was called, I think, The Footballing Mavericks, and that era was kind of known in England about the Mavericks, but because obviously England didn't qualify for the 74 and 78 World Cup, and then Shannon was mentioned, and you had the likes of Stan Bowles and Tony Curry and Frank Worthington, and they're sort of saying, like, we had all these amazing flair players, but they weren't either necessarily always being picked or selected for England, or then doing it right. So it was weird, and I think Mick Shannon fell into that category a little bit.
Yeah,
I've got an answer, by the way.
Go on, Justin Fashanu.
Yeah, Justin Fashanu. So I mean, according to Wikipedia, he played for about 25 clubs, but the last club he played for in 1997 was, forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, Myanmar Rangers from New Zealand. Does that ring a bell with you there, Lee? But yeah, that was in 1997. That was his sort of final, and he played 17 games and scored 12 goals in those 17 games.
Is there anything about playing for Adelaide Gold? I saw him play in Adelaide. I thought maybe more in the 80s, but
let's have a look. Oh yeah, yep. Sorry, you're right. In fact, his first team was Norwich, of course, 90 appearances, 35 goals. And then he went on loan in 1980 to Adelaide City, 5 games, 3 goals, and then went back to Norwich, and then went back on loan to Adelaide City in 81, 6 appearances, 2 goals. So yeah, his second and third club, really.
Oh, that's
And then he signed for Nottingham Forest.
Forest, yeah, exactly. And he's a big signing for Forest.
So it's the peak of his career, really. He wasn't. Yeah.
And then, of course,
that would have been.
Hang on, let's have a look. 1991 to 1993, and this is quite impressive. Sorry to elbow this in. Torquay United, 41 appearances, 15 goals.
Wow.
Home goals.
But would that have been a similar scenario like in the 70s? A lot of the English guys, when the NSA, NASA league started, although Fashanu was on loan in 80 and 81, would that have been our summer, but then the season in Australia? So he was out on loan for Adelaide, but it wasn't the season over here. So he wasn't missing any Norwich games, because I believe a lot of as I say, that's what a lot of the English players did with the North American League. It was being played during our non-season, right? So they often went over and played at that time.
I reckon you're right, because our winter obviously is your summer, so they would have. They probably popped out here on, because that's when most of the touring teams came out too, in the middle of they came out here in winter. That, Spurs are coming out again in May to play in Melbourne this year. So obviously the season will finish. So probably in the window between the season and the Euros, Spurs are popping out for a match out here. So yeah, so no, that makes sense. Yeah.
Right. So what I thought we'd do now, if it's okay with you, Lee, is I thought I might share some Australian connections across the years in different comics. So I'll for listeners.
Does it need a theme tune?
What?
Does it need a theme tune? I'll make one up. Okay.
Go on,
It's connected to Melinda. I'll do it again because that was too quick and really
it was
rubbish.
very fast. Yeah, it was
do it again. Go on.
I'll slow down the tape a little bit. Hang on. It's connections from Melinda.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Not bad for on the spot.
It's not bad on the spot. You've only had 3 hours to think of that. Good stuff. Right. Okay. So going back. So this is, I'm showing on the screen. This is Roy the Rovers in 1962. It's a summer tour. They went to Australia. You see, there's a common theme of trying to get as many Australian cliches into the panel as possible on the screen.
Just like this podcast, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so you got the team driving through the outback in a coach, and there's is it a herd of kangaroos? I don't know. I don't know collective for kangaroos.
No, we've all heard of kangaroo. I'm laughing at my own joke. Sorry, carry on.
Oh, seriously.
Yeah, I don't quite know whether they'd be driving in the outback, but anyway, I guess it's dramatic license.
Sorry, Lee. But if it's in the comic, it's got to be true, right? I mean, you can't question the comic. I mean, Evan Hughes did play in the 85-86 season. Everyone knows that.
I'm sure.
Sorry, I've just googled that. Apparently, that's a mob of kangaroos.
It's a mob of kangaroos. Okay.
A mob. Okay.
So there you go. Anyway, so that's 1962. We move on to. It's not moving. It's not moving on the screen. Is it moving? Okay.
Yeah.
Did that
It's
move?
right, I'll fill if you want.
So the 1966.
Oh.
Can you see that there? So Roy is he was chosen for the 1966 World Cup squad. But he picked up an injury. So we see a picture of him. He's on the couch and he's looking really down. And Ben Galloway's going, look. The doctor says your ankles, you've had a nasty knock. And the doctor's there. You can tell he's a doctor because he's old and he's got a moustache. And he says, look, I'm afraid England can't take a chance on you for the World Cup, so you're going to have to drop out. But Ben Galloway's got one bright spot. Don't worry, you're going on a tour to Australia. So that's it. They go on a tour to Australia. And it's almost like the same coach they used in 1962.
It actually is quite interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Dear. So
I love the panel you've got there, Matt. It's like, and 1 week later, Melchester Rovers were high over the Australian outback, and then again, there's the picture, and of course you've got the kangaroo. Oh, cool. And there's the plane as they're flying in, and the kangaroo observing everything. It's brilliant, isn't it? There's no stereotypes in that panel
Christ, at all. Bloody hell, Joey! The Roy the Rovers Melchester team are flying over.
Look, it might be the same kangaroo from the 62 story.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's have a look. They
do
look very similar.
It looks very similar.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, Christ, look at that one too. There's another bunch of bloody Joeys.
How do you reckon they choose the kangaroo? Do you reckon there's some sort of casting pouch?
Yeah.
Which I use for that?
Oh,
thank you very much.
The podcast.
Thank you very much. Good night. Good afternoon. Good morning. What day is it? I don't know. So that's the 66 World Cup. I can't remember what I put on next. I think this is right.
Yeah, this is it now. This is
the 1978 annual. So Melchester famously play a women's Australian football team. They think they're going to play the male team, and then they turn up, and then suddenly there's a reception at the hotel. I think Duncan Mackay is a bit sexist. I think everyone's sexist.
From what I remember, there was a lot of sexism in that strip, but I'm sure at the end of it, though, it was all put right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
I didn't, obviously I didn't get it at the time, but years later I did find this annual in a second-hand shop, and I remember reading this story. I found it funny. Like, I really kind of, it probably wasn't maybe their intention at the time.
Oh no, I mean, we loved it at the time. I mean, and also, I mean, this is a shot here where you've got Queenie, and he goes, that's called the boomerang shot where we come from, and she bends the ball in. So again, you got the kind of Australia boomerang. Brilliant. Genius stuff. It's great. House.
My memory of this story, it was that they weren't taking it seriously, were they? The Rovers.
That's right. Yeah.
No. And then the women's team were actually really good, and I think Roy had to then really, give them the rocket, so to speak, at half time.
The Roy's rocket, very good racist rocket, at half time. But I think famously, somebody nutmegs Duncan Mackay. I think early on in the story, and I think they go, yeah, you're right. They're tuning him up.
Well, you look at that picture; he's got his legs wide open anyway. So I mean, anyone could have nutmegged him any time during the old bloody game.
Yeah, it's a great action shot.
It is
probably. It was probably actually progressive, even with the sexism and
Oh no, in all fairness,
in a way, you sort of, it is a bit of a nod to like equality and
I think Jermaine Greer, was one of the co-writers. I think, if I remember rightly. I think she got a credit.
In all seriousness, but we've touched upon this. Sorry to interrupt, Lee. Forgive me. I'll come back to you in a second. In all seriousness, the women's game was huge over here in the 20s, and they were getting bigger crowds than the men's game. And then the FA decided to outright ban women's football, and it didn't recover until like the 80s and up until now. So it was quite progressive to show that in the strip then, because women's football over here was banned.
Yeah. So we're moving on to
an astonishing thing.
Yeah, so credit to them for, they were probably going for a bit of effect, literally, but it was but no, I can see what it was. I think pretty laudable too that they were doing a story like that. So
it didn't show them upward. It was at all.
I think that's the point actually, and sorry, just on that last thing on that is you're right, Matt. From what I remember, and I struggled to find it before this pod, there was a little bit of sexism, but what was intriguing though in that story though, it showed them to be more than competent footballers. In fact, they were very good, and I think that's kind of quite the key thing. They certainly weren't the portrayed as that they couldn't kick the ball or anything like that. In actual fact, it's quite the opposite. So I mean that was, I think, quite good.
So now we're moving on the screen for listeners that we moved on. And I've got this is 1978 summer tour. Melchester go to Australia. We've got the team playing on the beach. We've got Roy scoring a goal past Charlie Carter. Funny, interesting. They've got their names on T-shirts.
I noticed that.
A bit weird. It's like some sort of, I don't know, stag weekend or something like that. I can't even imagine Melchester Rovers on a stag weekend.
Wow. In case they got lost in Sydney, I suppose it was. Please return Vernon Elliott.
And then suddenly,
Paco probably wasn't there, was he? Paco would have been a party.
It's pre-Paco.
Pre-Paco. Just before, wasn't it? Yeah.
Paco joined, I think, a year later. But then suddenly you see there's a screech from the sea on the beach, and they're running out of the water, and someone goes, "It's a warning that sharks have been sighted in the area. There's a red flag up." But what happens? Suddenly you see a dorsal fin. This is only a couple of years after, 3 years after Jaws, 1975. And there's a great white. So a different kind of Australian cliche, if you like, maybe. Who's going to dive in to save the child? There's a child in there with a lilo going, help, and Roy dives in to save the child.
Help!
Yep. Was that like Penelope Pitstop?
Yeah, it was Penelope Pitstop.
Yeah.
That's pretty
it's
good.
the Clara.
I love, the speech bubble in there as well, though. It's no use. The thing's going to overhaul them. They've had it.
Come on, Roy. Come on. And he's blowing water out of his mouth there. He's not. Yeah.
I mean, seriously though, come on, Roy. Come on. Why we all stand here
Yeah, that's
what?
what I was thinking.
It's almost as if he's about to take a penalty.
Yeah.
Including the surf lifesavers to actually patrol Australian beaches.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
Yeah.
Distinct
Very good.
of them, isn't there? Like they're just standing back watching the English soccer player jump into the water.
They're thinking, look, you're an idiot. Who's going to dive in? There's a great white. They're not stupid.
Exactly.
Yeah. We wash our hands of it literally.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens? Well, lucky enough, Charlie Carter in green speedos. He's got
I
football,
didn't remember this. Look at that.
and he
That's not a
throws
good
the
look, is it?
ball, and he hits
Ow.
the shark on the head, the great white shark, smack on the snout.
Yeah.
And apparently the brute didn't like it, and that's it. And the shark he swims. If only Rod Steiger
Yeah, I don't know.
3 years earlier.
Can't believe he didn't have a football.
He
Or
didn't
a
have a football.
on
They
his
could
boat.
have saved the boat.
I
Maybe.
mean,
Can I just say what I love about that as well is it's brilliant in that obviously in the lead up to that, all you see is the fin in the water. You don't see the shark. Suddenly, when Charlie throws the ball at the shark is actually out of the water.
It's heading the ball.
And basically, it's a fantastic header. Yeah, it really is.
I mean, you mentioned Great White. I mean, that's just describing Charlie Carter's hair.
Yeah. I've just
Oh,
thought
dear.
of another great pun. You know, Stark match winner, Shark match winner for hire.
Yes,
Oh,
brilliant.
thank you very much. God, unbelievable.
Oh dear.
We call those sort of speedos. We call them budgie smugglers.
Budgie smugglers. Yes.
Yeah, lucky enough you can't
And
see
they
budgies
definitely are as well, aren't they?
on that shot. But,
Yeah.
Certainly, though, Charlie Carter in goal, he stopped a shark attack there.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, very good, very good, very good. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on quickly. Yeah. So the story continues. Go on, go.
I was going to say, please move on quickly from that horrific.
Okay. We have some news. Next shot. Roy feels it. Yeah, Roy feels ill. There's another kangaroo shot.
How?
They stop. He's feeling ill. They stop off at a sheep station.
As you would on
As you would. Well, I mean, I'm sure they're everywhere. I'm sure you walk down. If you went down the street, Lee, you walk past for 2 or 3, wouldn't you? Roy's been stung by a jellyfish whilst he was saving the child from a great white shark. So what you have there, you have somebody in the outback, and he pulls out from a termite hill, because they're everywhere as well, I'm sure. A load of termite saliva, and they apply that to the bite.
Because apparently termites, they're going to suck the poison out.
It's a well-known cure for jellyfish.
Are you aware of that, Lee?
I didn't realise we had a termite. I didn't realise they were that indigenous to Australia.
Lee, I thought you were from there.
You know what's incredible about that? You've got to give the script writers their due. From a point of view of a United Kingdom reader, being aged, say, 9 or 10, to know that if I ever did end up in Australia in the outback, saving a child from a shark attack, risking my own leg, even though I'm a professional footballer, and then get stung by a jellyfish and have to get saliva from termites rubbed all over it, then I'm all right.
I think it's what you call public service broadcasting or publications. Yeah.
So
it seems like there's a hell of a delay between him getting stung and then feeling the effects of it. He probably would have killed over pretty instantly on the beach.
That's true.
Anyway,
it's 2 hours. Yeah, you're right.
There's a kangaroo.
Yeah, it is 2 hours later.
Again. Yeah. There's a kangaroo looking at the coach again. You go, oh, bloody hell, off they go again. The bloody Rovers.
It's the same kangaroo.
I was just going to say, on that next page as well, what I love is the shout of Roy, and then this the Aussie guy going, yeah, the Poms aren't going to like it if we ruin their greatest soccer player.
It'd be held against them forever.
Yeah.
Because we say, they did it on purpose. It's a jellyfish. Yeah. Oh dear. Anyway,
would this have been how Australia was perceived, or was this a little bit? Right. Wow.
It hasn't really changed over the years, Lee, to be quite honest. I mean, it's just the great wild outback. Don't go there. I mean, spiders, jellyfish, shark, God knows what, snakes. We're all scared of the place.
Well, I don't blame you for that. They are actually they are pretty. I had a giant spider in my sink just the other day, actually.
Oh no. Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. It's gone now, has it? I mean, I know we are
Yes.
thousands of miles away, but I wouldn't like to see it.
Yeah, exactly.
What's that behind you on the wall? I know, so it's fine.
It's Tangents Comics.
Oh, it's Tangents. Okay. Yeah, and then just finally on this 78 tour, this is interestingly the first time we ever hear mention of the word Bazran, because in the tour they play the Bazran national team in the final of this
What
summer
year was
tournament,
this?
1978.
Wow.
So here we have on the screen, we've got Rovers about to play in the final, the Middle Eastern state of Bazran, and then they meet some of the dignitaries and
His teeth are good, aren't they? Look at them.
Good teeth. Good David Skew teeth.
Yeah, proper.
Good Skew teeth.
End of the show.
Yeah, so friend of the show. So that's 78. Then we move on, obviously, famously, to some of the Australian villains who were dragged out a couple of times further on. Yeah. So we've got. I think this would have been November 81 or October 81. So, yeah, do you recognise that character, Lee?
I do. Yeah, yeah. This is when I'm sort of really. I mean, I'm pretty young, but I'm very much reading Roy at this point, and I was probably actually really chuffed to see an Australian appear. Like, just hey, they know we're here, sort of thing. So even though he's obviously a villain, and he was in the piece for Roy's voice.
So for viewers, I'm showing a picture on the screen of Mr. Arnie Meckiff. He's Roy's distant cousin who went out to Australia. And I mean, yeah, there's a bit more stereotype here.
I was going to say,
the dialogue.
The dialogue is just brilliant. I mean, it's just
awfully brilliant. Yeah, brilliantly awful.
It's just how many stereotypes can you get into one bubble?
Roy, you little ripper.
He looks disheveled. He's got his feet up. He looks like he's been drinking beer.
Yeah. We don't view you like this, Lee. Honestly, we don't at all.
I want to apologise. I mean, I know we're doing a lot of cliched jokes about Australia. Forgive us, Lee, but I've got to do this voice for that little one cell. And what about these two little beauts? How's your I mean, come on.
Can I just say, actually, Goal did the joke earlier on in the pod that the three things, two of them are actually mentioned here. Sheila and Sport does appear in both those panels.
Look, there probably were Australians who did talk like this, and there may still be a few of the older generation that I've never actually heard anyone Sheila in real life.
Really? There you go.
No.
I mean, Alf from Home and Away still talks like that.
Yeah, he may be the only one, I think.
Flaming Galah.
Yeah.
What is a flaming Galah?
It's a bird. Yeah, it's a brightly coloured bird that squawks really loud. So,
it's not on fire or anything. It's called a flaming Galah, yeah.
Well, flaming is a polite word for
I see. Oh, okay.
That there bird, Goal. That there bird.
Yeah. Yeah.
So moving on from Arnie, we have the summer after we meet.
Yes, here
we meet Ralph Meeker.
Yeah, he was
the Australian Test cricketer and the fastest bowler. We're told in bold,
in the world,
the fastest bowler in the world.
Yeah,
playing against Melchester
when you slid that across for the listeners, of course, that can't see it. Quite massive. I mean, maybe it's because I've zoomed in a little bit, but quite massively. There's the cricket ball, and it actually made me jump.
Yeah.
Well, he is very fast.
I've got to say, in all fairness, that panel there, we've got Ralph Meeker throwing one down, and you can really feel the velocity in that artwork.
Superb.
Brilliant.
David Skew work. Yeah.
Look, this is the detail, and it's very evocative, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
You can really feel that speed, and
he looks scary as well. He looks really scary.
Yeah. Who was there? He's kind of not quite, isn't he? But with the moustache and stuff, it reminds me a little bit of old Merv Hughes there, right?
Yeah, this is pre-Hughes as well.
Yeah, it's pre-Hughes as well. Yeah, would have been. Yeah.
Go back to the close-up, please, Matt.
I'd be guessing they're going for Dennis Lily, if anyone remembers
Yeah,
Dennis
yeah,
Lilly.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good one, Lee. Yeah, yeah, I agree.
But yeah, but also if you look at it, it's a sort of a prototype for Bruce Pancho Miller.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Actually, yeah.
Mm.
Funny, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah. So
wasn't Barry's more of a cricket fan than actually
yes,
football?
Yes, that's
he
right,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
It
Because he wanted to
was-
launch
I think
a
I've heard
cricket
him
comic. Yeah,
probably on
yeah.
your interviews. He sort of introduced the cricket story, didn't he? Because he actually
Yeah.
it's
I mean, in the 70s, particularly in Tiger, there's big. Obviously, he was friendly with Jeff Boycott. That's how he became chairman of Melchester in '84. But I know Tony Gregg used to do a lot of articles for Tiger in the 70s. So yeah, I'm sure he's very comfortable or very happy to do I mean, this would have gone on for weeks. This storyline.
Yeah, it did.
When they played the cricket, and I think in the end, I mean, for listeners, we're showing the end, one of the end panels, where I think Rovers actually beat the
Cavaliers.
select team, the Cavaliers. They won it by 7 runs, and famously, this is where Roy gets hoisted up, and Vernon Elliott and Blackie Gray and Duncan Mackay on the shoulders, and famously Vernon Elliott stumbles and he gets injured, and that's the end of his career.
Yeah. Well,
No more.
I was going to say that, Matt, it's amazing how when you kind of revisit some of these storylines, and I always come back to the Tubby Morton, which he did the special on some of the things that he featured in. But this storyline here with Ralph Meeker, and of course we never really hear of Ralph Meeker ever again, but that storyline saw the end of Vernon Elliott. His playing career was over because of him falling in the celebrations. But if you also remember, it was from one of Ralph Meeker's balls, he broke Charlie Carter's collarbone, which then led in turn to Tubby Morton being recalled, which then led in turn to Roy leaving Melchester Rovers. So exactly. So the Ralph Meeker character actually is one of those real pivotal moments in the storyline.
I don't like him now.
Who, me? I thought we'd already established that.
Do you remember this, Lee?
Yeah, because I mean, Roy always had to have a nemesis, didn't he? Like
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
I mean, it's obvious to me now. It's just basic storytelling. You've always got to have someone to go up against to make the drama of the story. So obviously, later on, it's Joe Bellamy or Sam Barlow, and so this Ralph was kind of his, his sort of nemesis for this storyline. And he gave it pretty good.
He was really good. It's a great character.
Yeah.
I'm sure lots of listeners remember him. Yeah.
I don't know. Still the thunder here, Matt, because I don't know if you felt, but at the same time, and I'm sure it was this year, this was for me as well. When I was reading this, was really my first non-season with the comic, and so I'd never really experienced, reading the non-season. And the Marx Brothers were also over in Australia playing cricket as well.
Wow.
So I remember thinking, thinking that all in the non-season, that what the football teams did was they played cricket in the non-season, because it seemed to be covered in my 2 favourite stories at the time. Yep.
There you go. Yeah. So on the screen.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I said. I didn't realise if you were going to have that. Sorry, yeah.
The Marx Brothers went on an FA tour of Australia.
Yeah.
And again, if you look in the corner, there's an Australian cricketer there, Tim Marsh.
Yeah. Can't think who he's based on.
Who does he look like? He looks like Ralph Meeker, because everyone then had a moustache. I'm sure you can back this up, Lee. Everyone was walking around in 1982 with a moustache. I see you got one now. I mean, maybe you just kept yours going. Maybe not when you were 7, though.
It wasn't actually, in fairness. That probably wasn't. No, I didn't. It came a bit later, but no, actually, you're right. When I look back at it, you would have had people like the Chappells and Dennis Lilly and Rod Marsh, the wicketkeeper. The Aussie look was definitely, shirt open, big
masculine.
So they weren't too far from the mark on this one. I don't remember this story. I would have been reading the comic for sure.
Yeah.
I don't remember this line. So.
Yeah, no, sorry, I do remember that. Sorry, Matt, stole your thunder a little bit there.
No, that's great. No, it's great you remembered it. It's brilliant. So we can talk it. there are a couple more others, and then I'm going to move on to a bit of a quiz. I'm going to quiz you all. So I hope you've been paying attention. But there was a kangaroo kid. I think you mentioned this, Paul, didn't you? This is in Scorcher though. This is in Scorcher.
Yeah.
This is way back. This is that's a great story. I mean, I didn't read the Scorcher, but you know, there's basically a football team on tour. They lose the centre forward. They're driving again through the outback. I think it's the same coach. IPC used the same coach. I think they hired it from the same company.
It's that same coach that Rovers we use.
It's the same one which Milchus had used in 62, 66, and
Do you
78.
know what? Sorry to go off on a tangent as well. I do believe that's also the same coach that Dynamax Slavek used when Danefield went over to Russia in the
Maybe they just used the same coach.
Yeah.
Maybe just sort of transported it around on a boat. But yeah, they come across a guy or come across this kid who's running with some kangaroos. Like you do, and he can kick the ball really far. So that's the kangaroo kid. If anybody's interested, Scorcher, 1970.
So can I just on that one last thing on that? Do you know what?
Yeah,
it's amazing because you've shown the panel there. So this for listeners because you can't see the artwork. So they're playing. The ball goes off to the side of the pitch, and there's this kid that's running with these kangaroos, and he just smashes this football. And it hits a guy on a car and it just completely takes him off his feet. And what it reminds me of is that first ever edition of Hot Shot Hamish as well, when the ball gets rolled to Hamish and he just wallops this ball and knocks someone over. So there's real elements of that. So this guy, what we established, that he's got a fantastic kick on him.
And I think his leg muscles, you know, from running with kangaroos, I think it's given him extraordinarily strong leg muscles, and I think everyone knows that, right? You know, everyone knows it.
That bloody kangaroo has got equity cards. It's the same one.
Same
Same kangaroo.
It's actually a really well drawn. I've not seen that before.
No, go and check it out. Yeah,
it's actually
one. Sorry, Lee, go on.
It is well drawn, isn't it? It's quite the colours are very unusual. So
it's got a red wash, isn't it, on this one? Yeah, I don't know who the artist is, but
one last thing on the kangaroo kid might help listeners as well is because I'm surprised, Goal. I'm not sure if you would have known this, but although I've got the Scorchers, I haven't sort of gone through mine yet, but. Pete Nash, when he launched the first Striker comic, the first time he launched the Striker comic, he actually approached IPC. He wanted to do reprints of the Roy the Rovers story, but they wouldn't allow him. But they actually did give him the Kangaroo Kid. So in the Striker first comics, you will find the Kangaroo Kid in those reprints.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, I think that. Forgive me. I'll have to do my research on it, but there was also an Australian version of Striker, I believe, from Pete Nash, or maybe it was. I'll come back to you on that because I remember talking about it when we had Nashy on, but I'll do some research because there were. I'm sure there was an Australian version of Striker, but it didn't go very far. But anyway, I might be wrong.
No, that's good, because there were many comics and magazines we just didn't get. I'd never heard of Champ or We Are United or your podcast. I don't think those ones made it down here. They might have, but I never saw them. So
that wouldn't be unusual. Yeah.
I think that must have been difficultly, like we were talking earlier, like you mentioned the fact with Roy the Rovers that, you know, you had to be a subscriber. You couldn't just go into a newsagent's and they'd be on the shelves. I mean, that was where we were lucky. I mean, you know, you could just walk into a newsagent's and see Victor, Beano with all these other editions on the shelf. Whereas, of course, like you said, for you, as that wasn't happening, and if you didn't know about it, there was no way of stumbling on these other editions as well.
No, they probably just couldn't afford to stock, you know, publications there wasn't much of a market for on the off chance. Like they probably would later on, but you know, back then, 80s, it just wasn't the market, I don't think so.
So I'm showing on the screen now for listeners the Hard Man. So May '83, Danefield United went on a summer tour to Australia. This is classic Barry Tomlinson writing here. What you have here, you've got Victor. So Johnny Dexter goes into the office. Victor is standing on his hands because it's saying that they're going on the trip to Australia. So he's upside down. Then they get on the plane, they fly over there. Within 2 or 3 pages, you see a kangaroo. You've got Victor in a cork hat. They're at the Walangu Nature Reserve. There's an emu there. And if I just flick over the page, you've got the full house. You've got a koala bear, and you've got a kangaroo jumping on Victor. It's just, it's all there. It's all there. It's all there.
Yeah,
it's all there, really.
I do remember this one. Yeah, I'd forgotten about it, but I do remember this one. Yeah. So, and Victor was such a great comic character. You can sort of,
you can see,
this fits. It fits the tone. It goes well with.
It does. Yeah, you can't really take offense to that. It's just and then I think the last couple I've never got. Yeah, so actually Dover's Palace. So Dover's Palace, there's a link there because this is at the end. This is the 10th of August 1985, and this is when Roy of the Rovers is going through a big new change. Obviously, he's moving on to Wayne's Wolves and stuff like that. Dan Wayne and Joe Croker. Dan Wayne's chatting to Joe and he's going, "What about you, Joe? What are you going to do?" Because the club was being closed down. And he said, "I've had a chat with my sister in Australia, boss. She wants me to go out and live with her." So Joe Croke. That's what we call Croker, didn't it? Joe Croke went out to he went out to Australia. He emigrated out to Australia. Maybe in the Adelaide area. Who knows, Lee?
Yeah, you never know.
I tell you what, I bet Bygone Berrigan's having kittens now that I mentioned during this episode of Dover's Palace.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the final one, Hamish, Hotshot Hamish and Mighty Mouse, 1986. So summer tour to Australia was quite a popular thing, but they went out a few years later. And you've got a picture there of Kevin Mouse singing Waltzing Matilda, Waltzing Matilda in a cork hat, walking across the tarmac to the aeroplane. Again, what can I say? Apologies to our Australian friends. It
was nice when we would get like a nod sort of thing, like I used to enjoy those little sort of tangents, so to speak, into Australia, because it was kind of like,
it's good fun. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's all done. It was all done in a nice sense. Yeah, definitely, for sure. Yeah, nobody was. But it's funny looking back and you're looking at them and you kind of seeing about the fact of crying a crow in the fact that not just saying we're going to Australia is enough. You had to have some sort of evidence of it. I think when Rovers went on summer tours to every country, you'd have some sort of, if I went to France, you'd have the Eiffel Tower there, and you'd have someone in the striped Breton top eating onions. If you went to the US, you'd have gridiron and stuff like that. It's
and in fairness, a lot of the characters themselves, were a little bit stereotypical, weren't they? Like Paco and Duncan. Duncan was, it's sort of
rough, aggressive Scotsman. Yeah,
but you're writing a comic for largely a younger audience, so you're clearly going to go for those obvious reference points that they get. Oh yes, so all Australians say this, all Scots wear a headband, and
exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So we're going to move on to a quiz now. So I don't know what Paul Tangent's doing over there. He's going through his comics.
Well, I was just trying to. I will just for people that might be interested to find out the dates when the Kangaroo Kid appeared in the Striker comics. But yeah, come.
Okay, cool. So this quiz, I don't know if you've been paying attention. So the quiz is called "Where's My Kangaroo Sport?" So I want you
Australia.
So there's
I nearly did a theme tune then, but I realised maybe I shouldn't, if you know what I mean.
There's six.
Yeah.
There's 6 storylines, and what I want you to tell me for each of the storylines is how soon after they mentioned they're going to Australia that a kangaroo appeared. In how many panels did a picture of a kangaroo? So I'm going to go through each of them, and you can all have a guess each.
Yeah.
And see who gets the closest. And I've worked this out. I've actually gone to the stories and I've worked out which what number panel it appears after the mention of Australia. I have done the research. If anybody wants to double check it,
Wow.
please do. It's commitment. Committed, I think the word is.
I blame Lee for being Australian. You know, we wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for you.
Well, it's great fun.
Oh, this
Thank
is
you,
good.
Lee.
Yeah. No, exactly.
The Fosters are me, guys. That's for sure.
So the first one, 1962. I said they were on a summer tour in 1962. How long after the word Australia did the kangaroo appear? How many panels? Who wants to go first?
4. I will. 3.
4. Tangent 4. Goal 3. Lee?
I reckon 5 just to be different, but I reckon it was probably sooner, but I'll say 5.
The winner is Lee. It's actually 9 panels in 1962.
Wow.
Okay.
Very conservative.
So one to Lee.
Fix.
He has local knowledge.
He comes on here from Australia, knowing things about Australia.
Okay, 1965. I'm sorry, I don't think I showed a picture, but there's an annual
right
story. Again, they went to Australia. How soon after the word Australia did
I'm staying with 4.
How many panels?
I'm saying 4.
4.
1.
1. Oh, blimey, that's bold.
Let's go 6. Yeah, stretch it out a bit more. 6.
6. Well, it's a point for goal. It's actually 1 panel. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow.
1 panel after, yeah. So good stuff. Tangent, you're following your normal form on quizzes. You're doing really well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this was this is part of the bit. This pod's bingo, right?
Yeah.
Fouls it, boys.
On the door after 2 questions. Lee has 1. Gull has 1. Tangent is shit.
1966. We saw it earlier. I don't know if you're paying attention.
Yeah.
So 1966. How many panels?
3.
Let's go. 3. Oh, it's gone lower this time.
7.
7.
All right,
7.
5. I'll go in the middle.
5. Lee's going for 5. Actually, Tangent was the closest. It was 2.
Oh, really?
Well done, Tangent.
We got a tiebreaker.
Back in the game. Back in the game.
Right. Okay. Right. 1978. Do you remember the one with the great white shark? Charlie Carter. Termite saliva.
Oh. Interesting.
Go on. Who wants to go first?
Oh, 10.
10.
It was 2.
It was. Well, you're very bold. Very bold.
It was. What the hell was that?
I don't know. It's the word bold.
I reckon it came later because they started on the beach. I'm going to go.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, exactly.
Go on, Lee. Go keep going.
11, 13.
Oh, well,
You can't have 2 guesses.
You were close. Well, 11.
Guessed.
67.
Wow.
67.
Yeah.
So you are the closest.
Oh, well played, Matt. Which frame? Yeah, 5 weeks later. Come on.
I had to count 67 panels. That's for someone of my age. That's not easy without a calculator. Okay, so Lee's in the lead. 1983. So 1983. This is actually 1983 is actually Danefield. We showed it on the screen just not so long ago. There's a cork hat there was in 13 panels. The koala bear was 17 panels. But when did the kangaroo make an appearance?
Oh, I'm going to go early, although I'm going to be wrong. I'm going to say 2 again.
2? Oh, God. Wow. They were in the plane at the time. What are you going to say?
10, I think.
10. 10?
Yeah, it was a bit into the story, I think.
It was a bit into the story. Goal?
It was 9.
It was 9. Well, again, it was Lee. It was the closest. It was 15.
Wow, well done.
Well done, Lee. I think you're going to win.
Coming here, knowing your stuff. What a pisser.
You won't get invited back on.
Yeah,
You're too good.
Just following in the footsteps of the cricket team. So.
There it is.
Okay.
You button Matt, you know what to do.
You button Matt, yeah.
This is the ashes of your podcast.
Yeah, well,
the comic ashes.
Well, I think it's Goal and Tangent are being reduced to ashes for sure. The last one then. Hot Shot Hamish and Mighty Mouse. We just saw it on the screen. It's on the screen now. Oh, it's on the screen now, but I'm not sharing, so you can't see it.
Yeah.
1.
How soon after? Go on. Who wants to go first? Goal.
1.
4.
Or
I reckon
Lee?
7. Yes, it's 7. Yeah.
7. Oh, let's have a look. Oh, he's got that one again. Wow. Well, there you go. So the final scores are Lee, Australian, 4. Tangent, English, 1. Goal, not quite sure. Talkie-ish. Talkie. 1. It's like Eurovision Song Contest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talkie, come in, Talkie. 1 point. Well done, Lee.
Australia actually to enter the Eurovision song.
Yeah, they
contest.
do now. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
of course they do. Yeah.
I don't know why.
Massive. It's massive there, isn't it, Lee? Massive.
It is. It's a real cold, and I don't know why we get to enter it. It's a bit silly.
No,
but we do.
yeah. Well, let's not go there.
I mean, it's true, isn't it? Okay, let's do a European music contest,
Yeah.
including that famous European country, Australia.
Yeah, I don't know how we paid off to get that one, but anyway.
Yeah.
So thanks. Go on.
Oh, well, no, I was just going to go on my tangent, and I must admit, I'm really shocked. So the Striker magazine, what was released in 2004, actually did reprints of Billy's Boots for a while as well. But the Kangaroo Kid was number 63, which was the edition dated November 18 to 24, 2004. And so that's the Striker comic.
And is it reprints? So it's actual reprints.
It's reprints of the Kangaroo
Scorcher.
Kid from Scorcher. Yeah.
That's
And
interesting.
going back,
That will be.
that's fantastic.
Yeah. He's showing it on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
This was a 90s comic magazine?
2004. 2004.
Oh, okay. So quite a bit after. Okay.
Yeah. So that's for listeners out there that would be familiar with Pete Nash's Striker, and obviously he had a couple of attempts to launch it as a comic, and unfortunately both ended in failure. But that one done quite well. Well, it's good run.
Let me play devil's advocate here. I mean, the first iteration of the comic was, I think, somewhere around 80 episodes, and then the second iteration was about 26. But you've got to say, the way that he has released all of the volumes of everything, and we're just about to get the final volume 26, which is including new stuff. I mean, no other comic, no other, whether it be IPC, DC Thompson, no other comic has released coverage of their complete canon to the brilliance of Striker. Yeah. None of them.
No, it's fantastic. So.
Was it all reprints, or was it original stories too?
Well, the Striker story was original. So Striker was, in actual fact, a story that appeared in the Sun newspaper. And its creator, Pete Nash, he then left the Sun and started this comic. And the first version of which, as Goal said, ran for roughly sort of 70 odd episodes. And in those were then the reprints of the Kangaroo Kid.
It looks quite high quality. Was it all color? Or?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it was much more like a magazine than a comic as such as we would know it.
But it was,
and it was a bit more. It was adult as well. It was an adult content comic rather than.
Okay.
Can I just say one thing about comic collecting? I mean, even just seeing Tangent's comics in behind there, every time one of us puts a comic up on the screen, I get butterflies in my stomach because sometimes I think to myself, I really need to stop collecting because I need to pay the bills. But then someone puts up, like, then when you put that edition of Striker up, and I have all of them as well, both iterations and all of the volumes and God knows what, and you put that up and my heart fluttered, and I've never lost that, and I love that, and I'm actually welling up now, so I'm going to stop talking.
No, I know we've been talking for a fair while, but I think it's like a link, isn't it? It's a link to like childhood and in a small way, it was kind of a link for me, a little bit to where I was from. Like, I don't feel especially English really, but my family are, so it was kind of the comics in the 80s especially. It was like sort of a little bit of a connection to my roots and lots of family who were back home. Like I would always get the annual sent over from the UK, like by relatives, grandparents, and that was a really big deal. Getting the annual, that was a huge Christmas highlight. So
Well, look,
and to connect all these years later with yourselves and talk about it all, it's been great. It's really nice.
Well, it's been a fantastic. I mean, talking on behalf of the guys, but it's a fantastic chat. Talking to you, Lee. It's been so interesting, fascinating. Hearing.
I know that these become quite long when we have guests on, but do you know what? It doesn't matter because it's an absolute joy, and we love it. And whether it's 10 minutes or 5 weeks of an episode, it's with tangents on it would be 5 weeks. It's still brilliant.
So that's
great to talk about the past and share some memories and hopefully give a little bit of a different perspective, maybe. So
it's been brilliant. So thank you very much. That was great. So so we're coming towards the end of the show now.
You know what that means?
What does it mean?
Well, he's a guest, so he needs a nickname.
Okay. Have you been thinking of one, Goal, at all?
Yeah, but I've only been thinking the same thing for most of the episode because the nicknames have to be relevant to, like Bygone Berrigan, because he was like talking a lot about collecting comics in the past. So I'm sorry to disappoint everyone, but ladies and gentlemen, can we introduce to the team for his nickname, Aussie Lee? It's Aussie Lee.
Aussie Lee.
Aussie Lee.
Aussie Lee is good.
Is that all right with you, Lee?
Yeah. It's great to have a nickname. So
he's not impressed at all, I can tell.
I was wondering where you were going to go with it.
That's the problem. You kind of exactly.
And of course, a secondary thing. Seeing as we've got an Australian guest on, normally we'd end the show and have the theme tune, but I'm going to do a live 5-second live rendition of the special theme tune for this. There we go. Are you ready?
Yeah, go on.
We belong together. I was going to do the whole 30 seconds because I know it, but I won't. You're my guiding star. Move on.
I wish you would go away.
I'm sorry we inflicted those shows upon you.
Oh, I loved Home and
Away. In all fairness, they went down quite well over here, so I don't think there's any need to apologise.
It's a brilliant theme tune. Just ruined.
Right.
Yeah.
From the very first moment I saw you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going, Goal. That's fine.
You want me to do the rest of the 15 seconds?
See, that's why they call me Mute Button Matt.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. That's gonna do his head in. Let's unmute him.
He's still going. He's lost it now. Look, he doesn't like it when you mute him. He's gone off in a huff. He's resigned again.
Actually, Home and Away would make a good title for a football podcast, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It would be. Hello, Goal. You still there?
No, you.
Sorry. Anyway,
I sang the whole thing.
You sang the whole thing.
I was on mute.
Well, that's why you used it, obviously. Duh.
Oh,
anyway,
Don't
it's
What's
that? It's time to wind up the show.
Yes.
It's been a great one. So thank you.
All right, show you're a dick. Oh, sorry, I see what you mean. Sorry. Wind up the show. All right, move on.
Yeah, I know. That's why I cut that out. No, I can't be bothered. I'll talk about future episodes, but we won't. In a couple of weeks' time, we're interviewing Paul Trevelyan.
The next episode, yeah.
So that'll be
got another
amazing.
guest on.
Looking forward to that. Yeah. So that's great. And so let's do the socials. Shall I do?
Just before we do, it's worth mentioning that we will be getting back to the usual section type episodes very shortly. I know you guys enjoy that, the listeners. So yeah, after the Trevelyan episode, we shall have a good run of all the sections again. So yeah.
Yep. And yeah, okay. So let's do. So Twitter, obviously, Actually, no, I can get Lee to do it. Shall I get Lee to do it because
Yeah,
he's on
Lee knows the
Twitter.
Twitter. Yeah, does he know
What's-
the
what's-
Twitter handle?
what's
And
that?
Give me a sec.
that's
I'll just
thrown
give
him.
him. I'll just give him the time to kind of get rid of the giant spider on the wall, to get rid of that termite hill that's outside in the garden,
Let me just
and get that
quickly-
kangaroo out shot. He can. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you really are giving him time, aren't you, Matt?
I'll give him
Well,
time. I'll do the Facebook. So the Facebook
Yep.
is Roy the Rovers 40 years after, and Champ site is Champ. We Are United Football Picture Story Monthly. Paul, did you want to do the forum or go?
we've got the forum for ProBoards, so that's weareunited.proboards.com, and I think you hear these from us every pod, but that's how our podcast started. There's over 50,000 posts on there. It's not used as much now because obviously people migrate to the Facebook groups, but it's a fantastic site to basically look up anything you want to know on Roy the Rovers or the Champ We Are United. I'm sure you'll find an answer there somewhere in one of the threads. As I say, it's a fantastic reference site, and that's how it's being used these days.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Lee, are you ready?
Yeah, I quickly looked it up, and your X handle, I guess these days, is at champ_.r.
You see,
Brilliant.
that's the way it's done.
Fantastic. He
That's the way
is
it's
a
done.
You
professional.
listen to a professional there, Tangent. That's how it's
Yeah,
done.
I know that's how it's done.
You're stacked, mate. You're out.
Concise.
You're
Yeah,
out.
well, it was only
Aussie
ever going to
Lee's in,
be a
mate.
matter of time. It was only ever going to
Aussie
be.
Lee's in for you now, mate. Off
Do
you
you know
go.
what though? So that sees then Lee coming over to rainy old England, and then me obviously off to sunny Australia. These things happen, Lee. What can I say?
Yeah, we could look at that. We could do a swap. Yeah.
Swap deal.
And yeah, so thanks. Lee. Your X handle is Primary Industries Librarian, isn't it?
Yeah, well, look, it's probably a bit funny, but it is actually my sort of work account somewhere. I am a librarian by profession, so
Right. Okay.
Other
but-
librarians are available.
Yeah, secondary one.
yeah. So but it's
Yeah,
morphed a bit
secondary
more into a personal account. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So
Okay,
I went into a library the other day and went up to the counter. What? You're nodding already? You think there's a joke coming?
I'm shaking my head. Yeah, there's a joke. Carry on.
Go on. You were in a library the other day.
Yeah, I was in the library the other day and I went up to the counter and I said, "Can I have fish and chips, please? Fish and chips." And she said, "This is a library." So I said, "Can I have fish and chips, please?"
Yeah, right.
Was that it?
That is it. That's, you know what? I'm not sure we should finish it there. Just
Blimey,
one last thing
Riley.
on the old
3
Australian
hours
link.
I've waited for
3
that
hours
joke.
for that was how we were going to end it. I'm really annoyed because obviously, you know, when I was looking at the Striker magazines because of these reprints, I picked up an edition and now I can't find it. But in with the Australian theme, there was obviously a competition, you know, like the mascots that teams have. So
Yeah.
Pete Nash obviously went to the readers, and guess what? The Warbury Warriors mascot ended up being a wallaby, but I can't find it in any other edition. Well, since,
Okay.
sorry, just trying
That's
to
right. Thanks for
link
that.
it there and trying to cover
Yes,
over
right.
the library
this-
fish and chips
This
story.
is our attempt to get as many Australian references into
Yeah, exactly.
a show as possible. Look, it's time for goodbyes. So, but first of all, Lee, let me hand over to you to kind of say your goodbyes.
Aussie Lee.
Oh, look, yeah, once again, just thank you very much. And yeah, it's been a wonderful chat and meeting you all sort of properly at last. And hopefully people who listen find it, you know, find some interest in what we've talked about tonight.
Well, I'm sure they will. Go.
Well, yeah, I want to thank Lee too. It's been kind of a different one because I know it's kind of supposed to have been interviewing the guest, but it was more like a complete mutual conversation because Lee was bringing stuff to the table, you know, from the other side of the world, that stuff we weren't necessarily, you know, knowledgeable about. And then of course Mute Button Matt was showing the Australian references. So yeah, it was kind of all of us, you know, saying stuff, which I'm not doing very well now. But yeah, thanks to Lee, brilliant guest. Yeah, thank you. It's a goodbye from.
Cheers.
Thanks, Carl. And Paul?
No, brilliant. Thanks, Lee, very much for coming on. And hopefully, again, it gives other listeners. We've now had 2 fantastic interviews with Bygone Berrigan last week, and now Aussie Lee this pod. And I think I speak for all of us. I hope that we see you on here again, Lee. It's been really interesting to hear your story and find out the differences of getting hold of your. Well, in your case, not weekly copy of All of the Rovers, but yeah, really enjoyed it. So thanks very much for coming on.
I'll certainly be listening, so I'm happy to come again if you like. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you're part of the team anyway. So even if even if we're not going to expect you to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, you're connected to us anyway. So yeah. So finally, from me.
No.
It's not okay.
No, it's not, because Paul Tangent Paul, for the 2nd episode running, has forgot to say goodbye.
And it's goodbye from him.
All right, carry on, Matt.
Oh God. Yeah, it's been great. It's been great meeting you finally, Lee. I know we were corresponding for a while over Twitter, and it's great meeting you face to face and hearing your story. It's been really interesting. It's great going over those kind of old stories as well, and a bit of fun on the quiz. Well done for winning the quiz. There you go. So it's top work.
Yeah, thanks for that, Lee. Humiliating me again on another quiz. Really enjoyed that. Thanks.
Not difficult. Not difficult.
It's not the first time Australia beating England in something, is it?
No.
So been Bonza.
It's been Bonza.
Brilliant.
Excellent. Good stuff. Thanks a lot for that. It's been a great show. I hope all the listeners enjoyed it. We'll be back soon with a new show. Till then.
Well, we will be with a Paul Trevelyan special in 2 weeks.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Cheers. Till then. Bye-bye.